G'day. So we're working into our first ride here with Beau. So I'm just covering off the lateral flexion again, just making sure that's all right. So he resists a little bit there. Just hold that cue, and until he gives, and then we release. I'll let him straighten out there and think about that for a second. I think it's good to let him do that. When they're a bit resistant, they just need a little bit more time to think about things. I think it's something that he's very very good with his lateral flexion at this point. But just every now and then when he gets distracted, he'll resist a little bit. So I just get that working nice and soft there before I put a leg on to ask for a hind quarter yield. And here I just pick that up again and put that inside leg on, the right leg. I'm just asking for him to step that hind over to the left. As soon as I get that movement there, I release. Give him a good pat there. So that's quite nice for a first ask. I'll just sit and let him think about that for a minute. I think it's important in these early stages just to not ask too much and not ask too often as well. It's very very easy to overload a young horse. I've seen quite a lot of video and photos of other trainers where they've got horses in the early stages, the first few rides, and they've got them out really working hard, lathered in sweat. The horses are heaving in the big breaths, and in my experience, all that does is just create a horse that's anxious about everything to do with people, the gear that we use, the work. I've seen some where you struggle to get a saddle near them after they come back from the breakers, just because of the anxiety that they feel around the hard work that they've been put through, and the bridle represents hard work. So there we ask for the lateral flexion, and you can see I put that heel on there. It's more so the calf than the heel. Lay the calf against the ribs and squeeze. As soon as I feel that weight shift, we release the cue. And give him a good pat there, and as you can see, I like to pat them all over, especially the rump. I've come across some where you can pat their neck, but if you reach back and pat the rump, they'll have a bit of a freak out about that because it's not being done. So I like to rub them down the neck there, and I won't go straight to the rump. I'll run my hand down over the saddle, over my leg, the back of the saddle, the skirt, the saddle pad, and then pat the rumps. They can feel it coming. It's not a surprise to them when you go there. He's sort of anticipating that hind quarter yield now. Well, this is just the sort of horse he is. He's very cuey, very cluey. He's a thinking horse, and he picks things up really quickly and then tries to anticipate what you want. So what I'm going to start doing here is I'll only ask for the hind quarter yield sort of every 2 or 3 flexions, and if during a flexion, if I ask for just the lateral flexion and he moves his feet, I might even start to go to where I'll wait for him to stop his feet, then put the leg on and ask for the yield when he stops his feet. And that'll sort of teach him to wait for me, because if he doesn't wait for me, then I'm going to ask him to do more work after the work he's just done. He's almost a little bit too smart, this young fella. It's good to have a horse that can anticipate what you're going to want and be able to read your signals, and learn to work with you that way. But in these early stages, I really want him to wait on me. I really want him to wait and see what it is that I'm going to ask. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to work on these things that are just going to slow down that anticipation just a little bit, and just help him to slow his mind down just a bit, and wait on me to see what it is that I actually want, rather than just thinking, oh, I know what this is, and going off half cocked and doing his own thing. Again, I'm making an effort here to keep my legs off him at this point, just because every time I'm leading into asking him to go forward, apart from just the hind quarter yields, leading into asking him to go forward, I want every time those calves every time those calves touch him, I want it to mean something at this point. So I'm really pushing those legs out the side, so that every time I slide one back and squeeze into the sort of the back half of his ribs there, that's a yield, either left or right. As we get there, I'm going to hold that on a little bit there, get a bit more energy out of him. And when I first come to squeeze with both legs, I want him to start thinking and trying to figure out what that means. Whereas if I'm sitting there with those legs just leaning against him all the time, when I actually come to do that, he's going to be used to having that pressure there, and it's not going to have the same meaning. So I'll take the flexion there. He moves his feet. I'll just wait for him to stop his feet, drop that rein there. And we'll just wait and see if he's going to get insistent about every time I pick up that rein he's going to move his feet. Then I'll wait for him to stop his feet and then put the leg on and ask him to move his feet. So he's developing a bit of a habit here where I don't need to even hold that rein there. I'll ask for flexion, and he'll stand there flexed for quite a period of time before he straightens himself out. This is all part of the learning process for him. He's being as willing as he is. If I ask him to do something, he's going to hold it there and seek the praise. He's really looking for. He's really rub and affection motivated. This young fella. He's very much a herd oriented horse. You can see how soft he is there with the lateral flexion. I couldn't ask for more than that for as little as we've actually done with it. Like, he's really picked it up quickly. And this is something that comes from starting off with a soft feel, giving that softest cue first. Then we just lay that calf there, and he's not real responsive with it, so I just tickle him with the heel there a little bit. As soon as I get that movement, release the cue, and he'll pick up on that really quickly. I'm leading up towards asking for our first forward. I'm just starting to think about that. So when I ask for that, you can see I've got the lead down on the wither there with my hand on the wither. So that's our stand still cue. That's our stop cue. So every time I want to do something with him, the first thing I do is pick that lead up, hand off the wither. It's important to take a fair bit of time to just relax and let him think about things in these early stages. The last thing you want to do is put him under too much pressure, ask for too much too often. So here we go, pick up that rein, and we squeeze with both legs. We're asking for forward for the first time. So he's not quite sure what I'm asking for. He's gone for a hindquarter yield there. I'm just holding that cue. So the rein's up, both calves are on, and I start jiggling my seat just a little bit, just give him something extra to think about. Just keep him thinking. Even jiggle the lead just a little bit can help in these situations sometimes, just as an extra sort of a soft addition to the cue. And at this point, with him being a little bit unsure, any kind of a shift of the weight forwards, I'll release that cue, and he'll learn from that. So he's checking in with me. He doesn't quite know what I want. Yields his shoulder, and he takes a step forward, release all cues, and do a one rein stop.
At that point, I've been trying enough that I would have just taken, and I did take just the lean forwards.
Because when I've picked up his nose there, he didn't really do the one rein stop. He didn't respond to the leg cue. So I've held on to that and held on to the leg cue until he actually yielded his hindquarters. So I've picked up the nose and he just stopped on that rather than following through with the full one rein stop. So that's something that it's really important that he's responsive to the full one rein stop cue rather than just stopping on that lateral flexion. Because if he gets really out, if he actually gets out of control, then being able to yield those hindquarters is what really takes the power away and shuts everything down. So if he's not responsive enough to that, then I can't really ask for too much forward. But really, that's not too bad for a first ask and our first time going forward. I'm pretty pleased with that. Here you can see we pick the lead up off the neck, squeeze with both feet or both calves. We're not really using the heels here. Jiggle the seat a little bit. Just waiting for any kind of a response, even a shift of the weight forwards. His first move is to go backwards, looking for a way out. Then he steps forwards, release all cues. Just let him walk forwards there, and one rein stop. And again, he stopped as soon as I picked up the nose there. So I'll just hold that hindquarter yield cue with the leg, jiggle the foot because he wasn't responsive, and there he goes, and release the cue. And we'll stand there and relax for a minute.